The story takes place in an apocalyptic world and starts with the main hero tied to the ground, being interrogated by two women. One of them, holding a whip to scare him, asks his name. He replies that his name is Angisho and adds that he was just passing by. However, she accuses him of lying and is amazed to see that, despite the monsters wandering around, he is casually carrying barrels of valuable tomatoes. They ask if he injected any substances into the tomatoes, such as anesthetics. As the other woman listens to this, she spits out the tomato she was eating and starts coughing. Senjiame, who ate the tomatoes, informs her sister that they have no other pharmaceutical components other than a little pesticide residue. The other sister, Senju, starts thinking intensely. Angisho asks to be freed, but Senju uses the whip to scare him and tells him he is very naive for trying tricks even after falling into the hands of the West City duo. She warns him not to think that keeping a pretty face will prevent her from harming him. After hitting him, she looks at him angrily and asks where the tomatoes come from and if there are more. If not, she will finish him off. He starts shouting, asking her to stop being violent, and says that no one sent him. She lets him go, and he falls to the ground. He explains that he comes from another base and wants to do business with them. As long as they help him, he can provide more tomatoes. She is surprised to hear that there are more tomatoes and asks what he plans to do and if he's a slave trader. They look at each other intensely for a few seconds, and suddenly, Senjian shouts from behind, asking if there is anything else because the tomatoes are very bitter. She adds that they need vegetables and eggs. Yao asks Senjian to relax, calling her Tola, and asks where they can find eggs in this world. Angisho explains that the chickens are sick and the eggs they lay are not healthy for consumption. He thought they were only hungry for a while and wonders if the food in this area is really so scarce, considering that even basic things like vegetables and eggs have become rare commodities. It seems it's too late for this place. Senju releases him from his restraints, and he asks what kind of products he can trade for food. He thinks to himself that his parents are seriously sick and his sister needs money for education. He came here through a strange ring, so he could make a profit while he can. She thinks for a moment and says they can trade about 6 energy modules or a dozen pulse laser guns. She also adds that if he needs a slave, he could buy several beautiful women. He gets excited when he hears that, considering the possibility of trading eggs and tomatoes for beautiful women. She grabs him by the collar of his shirt and tells him that if he is so interested in the slave trade, he must be very concerned with them. He responds immediately that there was a misunderstanding and that he wants something more valuable like rings, diamonds, and gold. She is surprised and asks why he would want those items since they have been worthless for a long time. She asks again who exactly he is, and Angisho explains that his base is rich in food and needs those items to make his women happy. He said that they need food, and he wants gold, silver, and jewelry. He then asks how to make the transactions to get what they both need. She asked how the negotiation will take place and whether he can provide tomatoes regularly amidst the radiation. He said that he has plenty of food and can go there every few days as long as they can accommodate it. She mentioned that they don't offer special services, thinking they have enough strength to protect him. He explains that what he means is that when he gets there, he hopes they can guarantee his safety. After considering for a few seconds, they agree to the transaction but say they need to make the payment clear. They inform him that 1 tomato can be exchanged for 10 kilograms of gold or other items of comparable value, and that the barrels are impractical as they are heavy and can't hold many at once. He agrees to the condition, saying he has no problem with it. She tells him to start cooperating, and the tomatoes will be his provisions. She then bites into one of them. After tasting the tomato, she is satisfied and says that she hasn't eaten anything so pure in years. Before Cho can finish his sentence, she slams her fist next to him and orders him that he can move freely, but leaving the factory or being out of sight is not an option because the mutant beasts in that area were controlled but not completely. She tells him that if he wants to run out and meet his end, he can't say he wasn't warned. Cho asks if he can go to the restroom. Feeling embarrassed, she says he can go. He manages to escape from them and starts to think carefully that everything that has happened must have a reason. He looks at the ring on his finger and tells himself that it was the cause of his dimensional journey that day and that it's nothing special since he bought it at a stall. He then turns the ring, and suddenly, a bright light starts flashing and transports him to a different dimension. He is in a city. He looks around for a bit and says that he has returned. He looks at the ring again and remembers what the seller told him. The old man said that he had good looks and a bright future ahead of him, so he sold him a heavily ring for only 199 yuan. Cho then wondered who that old man was after selling the ring. The old man was chased by the police. He thought he had to find a way to ask that old man. Suddenly, a woman calls him from behind, telling him to stop. She asks him when he will pay the 10,000 yuan that he owes her or that his family owes her. He can't find words to say. She tells him that her son is going to university soon and that they need the money. He asks for a few more days and says he will pay when he has the money. He remembers that his father had a lung ailment and his mother had a brain hemorrhage, so she had borrowed money for her treatment. He puts his hands together and promises to pay back the money in a year, but she keeps insisting. Zhou then promises that she will be paid in 3 days, including 1,000 yuan in interest. However, she starts to insult him, saying that she has been waiting 5 years, how will he be able to pay in 3 days? She says that they are all losers and that his parents would be better off dead. Hearing all this, he becomes enraged and hits the wall between them in anger. He tells her that if she says one more word about his family, he will kill her, and adds that she will pay him tomorrow, including her interest, and sends her away. She leaves, saying that if she doesn't pay by tomorrow, she will find someone to make him pay. Cho thinks to himself that he should take this opportunity to give a better life to his family. The next day, he buys fresh vegetables at the market and prepares to go to the other world. He spins the ring once more and passes through the dimensional distortion. After the distortion, he finds himself in the same location as before, when suddenly someone points a gun at his head. He looks at the person and realizes that it is General Cho. After welcoming him back, she asks what took so long and why he suddenly disappeared the day before. He asks her to calm down and explains that he only went to get food. He tries to show her what he brought, but before he can, she rips it out of his hands. She starts salivating as she looks at the food and calls her sister to look too. After a few seconds, she regains her composure and orders him to cook. After preparing the food, both sisters start to eat it. Then, General Cho asks if he is hiding more food somewhere nearby, since it has been a long time since she had eaten such fresh vegetables. Cho explains that when he goes out, he brings enough food to eat and drink. He says that after dinner, he needs to talk about working together and asks if there is a vault nearby. She replies that they are in the western suburbs of Linjiang City, where there are only residential areas, but there is no vault nearby. She says even if there was, they wouldn't be able to open it with the equipment they have. Upon hearing this, Cho gets angry and says that they are a scam and that even though there is no vault nearby, they agreed to provide him 10 kilograms of gold for a tomato. She tells him that she has a good memory and adds that there might not be vaults, but there are luxury houses. She explains that what he is looking for should be in those luxury houses. She tells him that they are going out for training after dinner and orders Hayame to stay there and guard the base. If there are any intruders, she is to shoot to kill. Cho asks if she can do it alone, and she replies that he is still with her and that he doesn't need to worry since they have already scouted the area for mutants several times. As they leave, she hands him a watch and tells him to put it on. He wonders if it is a toy and asks how it works. She is shocked and tells him that he doesn't even know that. He explains that he is not a combatant and adds that he has never seen the monsters she mentioned earlier. She sighs and explains that it is a multifunctional soldier's watch. It can not only locate his position but also detect environmental radiation and has the ability to communicate with team members. As she explained this to him, she put on her outfit and then pulled him toward her motorcycle, holding her shirt, telling him that he can learn about the watch while they ride. Looking at the bike, Cho is amazed, seeing that it has no wheels. She asks if he is really from this world, since he doesn't recognize what a maglev is. He gets a bit flustered and says that of course he's from this world. She remains skeptical but lets him get on the bike and tells him to hold on tight. When she starts the motorcycle, it begins to float, and Cho gets scared. Worried, he clings tightly to her waist. She becomes frustrated by this and warns him that if he moves his hand again, she will cut it off. Some time passes as they fly down the street on the hover motorcycle. He asks why she is so silent, and she says that they have already explored the area a lot and that there are only zombies and mutant beasts there. She adds that after killing so many, one naturally becomes calm. Then, a mutant mouse jumps towards them to attack. He warns her to be careful, but she manages to kill it by shooting it with her laser gun without even looking at it and tells him to relax. Joe asks her how much food she would like to sell for the laser gun. She replies that she wouldn't sell it, but if he wants, she can get a weapon like that in exchange for an egg. When they arrive at Lin Zhang's base, he is amazed to think that he can get a weapon for an egg. He also thinks that people must be heavily armed in this apocalyptic world. They stop in an abandoned area with dozens of luxury homes around. She enters a house and tells him to stay close to her and not go anywhere alone. She explains that it's been a while since she's been in that place, so it might be a bit tricky. Upon entering the house, Joe is amazed by how large it is. He looks around and thinks that even the sofa might be worth a lot of money. She warns him not to be slow and says that they should return before it gets dark. She tells him that they have to go straight to the master bedroom since valuable things are usually there. After looking around a bit, he tells her that there doesn't seem to be much there, so they should leave. She kicks the large mirror with her boots, breaking it and revealing a large secret door behind it. He is surprised and asks how she knew there was a secret door. She responds by saying that it's because her house was more expensive than that, so there's nothing unusual about the hiding place. She then shoots the lock on the door to break it open. Inside the chest, they find some boxes and a small model of a ship made of gold. Cho is happy to see it and thinks this time he's really lucky. She asks him to see if there is anything else he's interested in. Cho is still enthusiastic about the gold ship and then his eyes land on a ring. He thinks it's so isolated in the safe room, so it must be something really valuable. He decides to keep the ring for now and tells her he's ready to leave. But then he gets scared when he sees an alert on her watch. She tells him to stay still and says she heard something. Cho asks what's going on as she walks over to the windows to look outside. She mutters to herself that it's them. Cho asks if they are friends of hers, to which she says no, they're some fools from the southern suburbs who have tried to sell them into slavery several times. She says that they are now being attacked by a swarm of mutant wasps, which they deserve. Cho observes the details of the wasps on her watch and thinks that because they are being attacked by the wasps, if they attack now, they could get rid of them once and for all. She tells him that they must jump out the window before the bandits see them. She jumps out the window easily, but when Cho tries, he hurts his foot. She asks if he's in bad shape and if it's possible that he hasn't been injected with genetic enhancers. He asks if she can buy some, and she replies that she can get one for about 30 eggs and tells him to stop talking and just keep going. She stops time, narrowly escaping a gunshot, as the bandits begin shooting at them. One of them asks her to stop and help them, but she refuses. She gives Cho a gun and tells him to help her shoot. He can't believe what's happening and wonders what she will do. She tells him again to take the gun and help her shoot. He holds the gun but tells her that he doesn't know how to use it. She gets indignant and says it's bad luck that she took this task. She starts writing on her watch and suddenly 2 grenades appear in her hand. Cho asks what those things are. She answers that they are light and smoke grenades. She throws them at the bandits and tells Cho not to forget to bring food as repayment. The bombs explode in front of the bandits, scaring them. She tells him to run, but the bandits begin shooting at random, without even looking, and a bullet manages to penetrate her shield and hits her left arm. Cho gets scared seeing this and asks if she is okay. She tells him that it's nothing and that he shouldn't worry about her, just keep running. As they continue running, more mutant wasps appear and start attacking everyone. She keeps shooting at them and somehow manages to get on her motorcycle and start it. She extends her hand to Cho and tells him to grab it. He manages to grab her hand and get on the motorcycle, and then they flee the scene. Once they return to her base, Zhao is very irritated. Cho apologizes and says that he has never been in a situation like this before. Zhao tells him that he should practice shooting since she cannot rely on his combat skills. Zhao then applies an injection to her wound, and she heals immediately. Cho is shocked to see this and thinks that if the medication there is so powerful, perhaps he can cure his parents. He tells them that he needs to do something, so he will see them next time. Zhao asks if he is sure he wants to leave now since the previous men might arrive at any time. He replies that he cannot stay, he really needs to go back now. He bids them farewell, saying that next time he will bring more delicious food as repayment. After walking away from them, he turns the ring again and returns to his own world, but Zhao sees him while she was hiding. Zhao sees his armor is destroyed and can no longer use it. Through his earpiece, Zhao informs Zhao that he has completely disappeared. Zhao then asks him to come back. She finds this interesting and thinks he has potential. Meanwhile, Zhou thinks the gold ship will improve his life at home. At night, he goes out to a jewelry store to sell it. The store clerk gets frustrated and asks how he is going to give it to him, saying he's been waiting for over an hour. Zhou asks if they buy gold pieces since he has a piece of gold art to sell. The clerk responds that they do, but he needs to show the receipt since they don't buy gold from unknown sources. Then, he leaves the store, saying that he will look somewhere else first and thinks to himself that he needs to sell it anyway. As he leaves the store, the employee yells that he definitely stole it. Zhou was thinking that he could find a store somewhere when he gets kicked out of another store. Later at night, Zhou sits on a bench, thinking there's no way he will be able to sell the gold ship. Suddenly, someone approaches and asks how many pieces of gold he's selling. Zhou looks up and sees an older man. The old man asks Zhou if he would like to go to his shop. Zhou agrees and follows the old man to his store. The old man welcomes him and introduces his shop, you ask, come in and out, an antique store, and introduces himself as the store manager, Yuan. Then, he asks Zhou to show the piece he is selling. Zhou reveals the gold ship and explains that it's a golden sailing ship in perfect condition. Yuan is curious and examines it more closely. He concludes that it is made of solid gold, with excellent material and finish. Yuan assures him that he is a fair businessman who deals with fraudulent people, so he will offer the full price of gold and art. He asks for Zhou's account details to transfer the money, saying to consider it a friendship between them. Yuan mentions that if Zhou has more valuable items, he should bring them there first. Zhou checks his phone and is astonished to see a message indicating his account now holds 740,000 yuan. Feeling wealthy, he heads to the house of the woman he owes money to. When she opens the door, he tells her he is there to pay and proceeds to transfer the money over the phone. She asks him to come in and says to give the money to her son since she doesn't understand the process. She calls her son Zhang to receive the money. When Zhang arrives, he tells Zhou that after all these years of owing his family, he is finally willing to pay it back. Zhou confirms he will transfer the money, then Zhang takes his phone to complete the transaction. Zhang begins insulting Zhou and his family, calling them lazy, uneducated, and saying it's no surprise his family is worthless. Zhou, unfazed, tells him he owed his family 10,000 yuan and transfers 12,000 yuan to him, the extra amount being interest. He warns Zhang that if he says one more word about his family, he will regret it. Zhang, scared, asks how Zhou dares to threaten him. Zhou responds by asking if Zhang knows what a threat really is and if he'd like to experience it. Both Zhang and his mother are terrified by this. That night, Zhou thinks to himself that the debt is finally paid. He decides to buy a new bed for his parents and wonders what happened to his sisters, thinking he should visit them later. The next day, he returns to the other world with more food. As soon as he enters the sisters' base, a gun is pointed at his head again. The sisters recognize him and he asks them not to shoot. Zhou asks what he is doing there again, and Zhou inquires if it's the same group from the previous day. She replies that it's none of his business since he ran away the day before. Zhou apologizes, explaining he has a sister he promised to meet that night and if he hadn't returned, she would have looked for him. Surprised, she asks why he doesn't bring his sister there. Zhou gives a made-up excuse, saying his sister is feeling a little uncomfortable. He continues, saying his sister doesn't trust anyone but him and is also very competitive. Jia Yao interrupts him, saying that's enough. Zhou then shows them his bag, saying he brought bacon and sausages for them and asks if they want to try it. After eating their fill, Jia Yao looks very pleased. She says she is full and happy, and that she hasn't had a good meal in a long time. She jokes with her sister, asking why she doesn't just marry Zhou so they wouldn't have to worry about their next meal. Hearing this, Zhou lightly hits Jia Yao on the head and tells her not to sell her sister to anyone. Jia Yao says they are running out of power modules and need to go to the Olenjian base tomorrow for supplies and a new combat suit for her. She asks Zhou if he wants to go with them. He immediately replies yes, saying he also has many things to buy, including genetic enhancement fluid, combat suits, weapons, and that he needs 10 copies of each. She tells him the genetic enhancers at Olenjian are of low quality, so there's no point in buying multiple injections. Zhou explains that he has some friends who haven't gotten shots either, so he's shopping for them too. She tells him they will leave at 10 and reminds him to bring more food, or he won't have enough money. He nods and assures her he will bring more than enough. The next day, Zhou brings several bags full of food and asks if it's sufficient for what he needs. The sisters are impressed to see the fruits, vegetables, eggs, potatoes, bacon, lunches, and meat he brought with him. Zhou says he'll leave 2 bags as payment and asks if the rest is enough for what he wants. Excited, he says he's really looking forward to it. Hia again asks her sister why she doesn't just marry him. She feels embarrassed and tells her sister to stop talking about that. Everyone then gets into the vehicle and begins moving at high speed through the desert fields. After a while, Zhou sees a large area ahead. Impressed by the huge walls, he asks if there is a military base behind them. Hyam responds that it is a military base at the border and that it has 3 solid layers of walls, minefields, and electric fences. He adds that it is a human settlement and military fortress that no mutant would dare approach. They say it is the Olenjia military base. People are entering the base in a line, with many guards standing around. As they walk in, Zhou asks Hyam how much food it takes to get money. She answers that an electric coin is worth half an egg. Just then, a guard asks her if the Western twins are recruiting men now. Hearing this, she orders the guard to shut up and do his job. Seeing the base, Zhou is impressed and thinks that Olenjia is the post-apocalyptic world he imagined. He asks the twins if it is dangerous since weapons were removed. Zhou assures him not to worry, because the community and shopping district are completely safe. However, he still questions whether Replent is safe, given the nature of the post-apocalyptic world. He watches a slave trader selling a girl, saying she is beautiful, has a great body, just arrived from the south, and costs only 10 coins. Zhao is surprised to hear this, as 10 coins are only 5 eggs. Jia asks him if he is tempted and advises him to take care of his affairs. He immediately says that he cannot waste food on something like that and tells them that they will trade money first. She replies that it is fine, considering that even if they are people, they would do anything for something to eat, including running up to him in the middle of the night and taking everything he has. After that, she shows him a building, saying it is the exchange house, and asks him to wait and not say anything once they enter, just act like he is not interested so that people will not look down on him. Once they enter, one of the employees asks if he has something good to sell. Zhou hands over the bags of food and tells them to exchange everything for electric currency. The employee is surprised to see the bags full of luxury food and confirms if they really want to sell all that. Another worker is also surprised to see all the eggs, vegetables, and meat. The employee asks where they come from, but the other boy asks him not to inquire, suggesting that Zhou could be a prince from a large base. Hyam asks him to hurry up and warns him not to try any tricks as she is watching them. After leaving the exchange house, Hyam shouts excitedly, saying that they got 470 points in the exchange and adds that now they can buy a lot of good things. They keep yelling that they are going shopping, so Zhou tells them they have been helpful to him, and they should buy whatever they want, and he will pay. Hearing that, Jia tells him that he cannot change his mind later. While they are happily talking, a mysterious man follows them from the shadows. He says that they look like a good target and that he should tell the tiger. The man runs to a nightclub and tells Tiger that he found a big target in the city and that they exchanged over 400 credits. Hearing this, Tiger finds it interesting and that it costs money. The informant adds that what they used for the exchange were eggs, fruits, vegetables, and 3 kilos of beef. Tiger asks if he is sure it was beef, to which he replies that he is absolutely sure. Tiger tells him it is a rare product and asks how many people there are. He replies that there are only 3 people, 1 man and 2 women, and they are still shopping at Market 1. Tiger then calls Old Six and tells him to get his men to block the road to the West District. He thinks that today, if you can afford beef, you are rich, and if this works, he will become very rich.